Hello, my name is John Capobianco, and welcome to ChatGPT integration with Cisco Crosswork. We're going to be converging network automation with artificial intelligence. Thank you for joining me today. So, quick agenda. I'm going to do a bit of an introduction and level the playing field so we're all speaking the same language when referring to some artificial intelligence terminology. We're going to look at ChatGPT plugins and then GPTs, the latest release from OpenAI. Finally, we'll shift to a live demonstration and build a plugin and GPT for Crosswork. And then we're going to test it out a little bit. So, who am I? My name is John Capobianco, and I'm with Cisco Learning and Certification Training Bootcamps. One of our bootcamps is actually for NSO and automation. I've been in IT for about 20 years. I have many certifications, and I was actually introduced to network automation at Cisco Live 2015 in San Diego. I was introduced to Git and Ansible and a few other technologies, and I actually practiced Ansible in production at my employer at the time from 2015 to 2019 after bringing those skills back from Cisco Live. In 2019, I self-published a book called Automate Your Network, which is available on Amazon, but more recently I've made it free. So if you go to my GitHub repository, Automate Your Network, you can download a PDF of that book for yourself. In 2019, I was actually introduced to Cisco pyATS, a Python framework for network automation that is free. And I've been using that primarily as my source for network automation since 2019 until the present. We're at an inflection point with artificial intelligence. I started my artificial intelligence journey about a year ago, and I was one of the first million users in ChatGPT's launch. It took them 5 days to reach 1 million users. They didn't stop there. They went on to reach 100 million users within 2 months. And you can see the comparisons to some other major services out there and how long it took them to reach 100 million users. This might be the most important slide for you developers and for you watching this presentation, aside from all the amazing stuff I'm going to do with the technology. You should be aware that Forbes has predicted that by 2028, total cost of ownership for artificial intelligence is going to go from $0 in 2023 to almost $80 billion, $76 billion by 2028. That is data center total cost of ownership, on-prem AI. Let's cover some terminology and some new 3-letter acronyms. LLM stands for Large Language Model. And there are different types of models. We're going to be using LLMs today. Generative Pre-trained Transformer. Now, GPT has come to mean several different things. We're going to build a GPT, a generative pre-trained transformer today with the new capabilities from OpenAI. Now, it should be noted that these are pre-trained. I'm not fine-tuning the models. I'm certainly not training the models. So how do we overcome some of the limitations of a pre-trained model and avoid hallucinations, avoid incorrect errors, avoid it jumping to conclusions? We can perform a form of AI known as retrieval augmented generation. And the new GPT we're going to build builds in retrieval augmented generation, RAG, where we're going to augment our original prompt. Is my crosswork healthy? We're going to go get some API data to help supplement our prompt, retrieving that from the source and augmenting the generation of the answer. Finally, there's diffusion models, which involve image creation and image generation. Something like DALL-E 3 or Midjourney uses diffusion models. This is a quote from Chuck Robbins, the CEO of Cisco. And I took this to heart as a developer in AI and as an employee at Cisco, looking to our leadership for guidance. And here's what Chuck has to say. The acceleration of AI will fundamentally change our world. Cisco is committed to being a trusted partner to our customers and to helping them navigate this transition in a responsible way to deliver on the promise of this technology. And that's what I'm trying to do, is do things in a responsible way to deliver on the promise of this technology. This is really encapsulates my journey with artificial intelligence. I'm trying to create an AI that can understand and use sarcasm. How's it going? It's going great. This guy is a real genius. Was that sarcasm? I don't know. It's a wonderful technology. It's mysterious, and it will do things that were never possible before. So again, my journey started about a year ago with the web user interface. I was given API access to GPT 3.5 in spring of 2023, and I started to incorporate this AI into pyATS network automation code. Eventually, I got to GPT-4 and became a paid user of the service. And then I was given access to plugin developer access, very early access. And I started to build plugins for Cisco infrastructure and controllers and APIs and other technologies, integrating them with artificial intelligence through plugins. After I had mastered plugins, a new tool called LangChain, which we're not going to explore very much today, but I think you should be aware of it, allowed me to write my own versions of plugins without using the OpenAI ecosystem. My own code, my own LLMs, my own GPTs privately through LangChain. I found a Streamlit.io, which is a nice framework to rapidly develop web-based applications for artificial intelligence. And then finally, GPTs became available just a few weeks ago, and we're going to build a GPT today. Let's talk about plugins. The first iteration of GPTs, OpenAI's first major functionality release in the past year. Now, plugins are self-describing. They are plugins that augment the base ChatGPT functionality. How do we build one? Well, it's actually rather simple to build a plugin and convert and subsequently a GPT. We need two publicly hosted files in a .well-known folder on an HTTPS, has to have SSL and a valid certificate, and it has to be resolvable over DNS publicly. So we need to host those files in the cloud somewhere with DNS and SSL. One of these files is the AI plugin JSON file. This is the manifest file. It's small and easy and describes the plugin to both the user of the plugin and the LLM. It has the legal text, an email, a logo, and it points to, more importantly, the OpenAPI YAML file. This used to be known as a Swagger UI. It's now known as the OpenAPI YAML file. It's a mapping of our crosswork APIs in this case back to a proxy server that lets the plugin get the JSON data from the APIs. This is an industry standard, and it supports all CRUD, create, read, update, delete functions. So we can do anything. We can create records, delete records, modify records, just read information without changing anything. And we can handle various status codes, 200, 201, 404, 400. All of those status codes can be mapped to how we want to handle them with this OpenAPI YAML file. And we're going to look at a real one in a second. So this is the example of the plugin manifest file. I want to draw your attention to the description for model. Now, the description for model tells the LLM what this plugin does. We can have authentication, and in this case, you're going to see it points to localhost. While you're doing local development, you used to be able to use localhost. I want to highlight that this is no longer supported. You must use a reverse proxy or publicly hosted files as of the developer day's release just a few weeks ago. So things are moving very fast. This is not quite correct in that it points to localhost, which is no longer supported. Now let's take a deeper dive into the OpenAPI YAML file, the important file. In this case, you can see I specify the title and version and my server. Again, localhost is no longer supported. This would need a reverse proxy. And then we have our paths. And you can see I have a pyATS answer path and a devices path. And the devices path has a get, a post, and a delete. The different methods, CRUD activities supported by that API. Now we go a little deeper and we can see that the pyATS answer is a get. It has an operation ID, a summary description, and then a list of our responses. And this one has a 200 response code. This is an example of a post. If we were to create a record, we need to map a schema and properties so that we can align what the user is posting as a body into the API system. Again, a closer look at the response codes. And now let's take a look at GPTs. Now, what's the difference? Well, there is no OpenAPI YAML JSON file any longer. We don't need the manifest file. All we need is the OpenAPI YAML file. This is brand new as of November 7th. So, a month, less than a month as you watch this video. It's a further evolution from plugins, and it supports all those CRUD activities. What's really interesting, there's a few important points here. We don't need to know any code to build a GPT. You may have heard of no-code and low-code solutions. This is a brand new type of code known as conversational code. And I'll show you that when we build our GPT. We actually get prompts and we answer the prompts, which will create the code to build the GPT. We can include DALL-E 3, web browsing, and data analytics, 3 new features from ChatGPT: image creation, live internet web browsing, and data analytics like CSV files or Python scripts or JSON analytics. And there will be a store for GPTs coming soon. Now, GPTs and plugins, they can coexist. This isn't a mutually exclusive thing. And we're going to build both today, and I'll explore the differences between the two. So let's make a ChatGPT for Cisco Crosswork. And if you'll just hang tight, what we're going to do is we're going to look at the code first. So here is my Django server. Django is a Python web framework development library or package or framework that lets me build web front ends and web applications and have a database in the back end all through Python. Here's that well-known folder, and here is the OpenAPI JSON file. And as you can see, I'm hosting this publicly now over HTTPS. And we have the description for the model. Cisco Crosswork. The data will include Cisco Crosswork JSON, conversations, and more. Please provide an initial summary of the Cisco Crosswork JSON data and help the user understand it and highlight anything important. Now, the important file is this OpenAPI YAML file. And you can see I have these various paths. So let's take a look at the installed apps path. So it is simply a get with an operation ID and a summary and our response code of 200. So what happens if someone visits my crosswork automateyournetwork.ca/playbooks? Well, in Django, that maps to a URL. So we have our playbooks URL, which opens a view. Now, Django has this concept of a model view controller, and this isn't meant to be a JSON lesson, or excuse me, a Django lesson, but this will help you understand what's happening when the plugin interacts with the system. So the plugin calls playbooks, which launches this view. This view is mapped, and I pass in the API that we've called into a Python script. That Python script does the authentication with the crosswork, so get a ticket and then get a token, and then get the JSON from the particular API that we've called, system health or KPIs or installed apps. That returns the JSON back to the calling application, in this case, the plugin or the GPT. So we're going to go into ChatGPT 4 here and click on plugins. Let's start with the plugin. So we're going to go on to Plugin Store, develop your own plugin, and we're going to point to that public URL where our well-known folder is, if I could type. All right, so we're going to point to our manifest file. It's going to find the manifest file in just a second and offer to validate it. So it's going to validate both the OpenAPI file and the AI JSON file. We just have to be patient. It should come up any second now. Now, there's also the possibility that there's a problem with ChatGPT right now, but let's just be patient. And maybe there is, no, there we go. Okay, so it's validated the manifest file, and now we can install our plugin. So I'm going to click Install Plugin. Couldn't install plugin. Let's just try it again and make sure that the plugin did get installed. It should appear in my list of plugins in a second here. And there we go. There is the Crosswork plugin. So we can have up to 3 plugins turned on at a time. And it has the nice logo. And what we can do is start to ask questions about our, and let's try that installed apps. So I'm just going to verify the path again. To make sure that I call a valid API here. So let's call installed apps, right? So what applications do I have installed in Crosswork? So now the GPT realizes it can't answer that on its own. So it invokes the plugin, which makes the call to the installed apps API. And we have this breakdown of our installed apps. And we have different applications installed, and it gives us all of the instances, downgraded instances, healthy instances, availability, all this great information from the plugin. Now, plugins still let me use ChatGPT and has internet browsing and some other things. But let's go ahead and let's build a GPT. So we're going to go to Explore, and we're going to create a GPT here. Now you can see here, hi, I'll help you build your new GPT. And you can say something like make a creative who helps me generate visuals for new products, or make a software engineer who helps me format my code. What would you like to make? We are going to say, we are going to make a GPT for Cisco Crosswork that has access to documentation and also access to live APIs. Now, what I'm going to do is take these paths that I have. I'm just going to take this whole thing and paste it in here. Here are the API paths I have available. I will also be uploading some PDFs to support this GPT. Okay, so seems like a lot, but I'm just going to give it the context, right? So let's make a GPT. And now the builder is going to say here, you're looking to create a GPT tailored for Cisco Crosswork, equipped with access to documentation and live APIs. This GPT will specialize in providing information and insights based on the API endpoints you've listed, such as blah, blah, blah. Now let's decide on a name. How about Crosswork Companion? Does that name resonate with your vision of GPT, or did you? I like that. I really like that name. Now the little, right? So the builder's going to continue. And it may even generate an image right now, which is what it's going to do. You can see here in our preview, we don't have an image. And in the top left, we don't have an icon. And it still doesn't have a name yet. So this is actually using DALL-E 3. Wow, that is quite the AI image. Here's the initial profile picture. Designed with a network theme concept to reflect its specialization in Cisco Crosswork. How do you feel about this design? I like the design. I like the design. Thank you. Let's continue to build the GPT. Great that you hear you like the design. Now let's focus on the role and goals for this companion. It includes the understanding of the specific tasks and functions you'd like to expect it to perform. Could you handle the primary tasks as questions? For example, should it provide a detailed explanation of API responses, offer guidance on using specific endpoints, or something else? So I would like to be able to call, oh, here we go. It's still updating here. Now it says, okay, it's just actually going ahead and proceeding here. Now let's personalize it a bit more. How would you like it to communicate with you? Should it use a more technical and detailed approach, or would you prefer simpler, more user-friendly explanations? This will help tailor its responses to better suit your need and preferences. Well, I like that. Can we have a mix of technical and detailed, but maintain a user-friendly approach and explain things that, we'll say anyone could understand. Also, use the actual JSON data to reinforce your answers. And I can start to test this. What does the CPU utilization KPI tell me? So let's just fire that one off. And let's well, actually, hang on. I haven't mapped the OpenAPI YAML file, but this is still a good test. So this is sort of what we're going to build is a GPT that will help users, you and your team, use Crosswork effectively. So we're not quite there yet, but this is a good start. So now it's tailored to provide a mix of technical, detailed, user-friendly explanations. It will assist in Cisco Crosswork-related queries, balancing the actual JSON data for accuracy with clear, accessible explanations suitable for a wide audience. Would you like to add anything else? Would you like to refine it further? Can we address how the GPT should respond if there is ambiguity? And now it's going to update the GPT, but it should ask me, how do you want to handle ambiguity? Should I ask for more questions or should I just make assumptions? And I'm going to have the GPT ask the user for more context or more questions instead of just making assumptions. That's what I'm trying to get at here. But the GPT is pretty close to being done. And then we're going to click this configure button and do some manual configuration of the GPT. So now it's handled. It's set up to handle ambiguous queries by politely requesting specific details. Okay, so we're done with the create and the builder. We have a logo, Cisco Crosswork Expert, clear and accessible, clarifies ambiguities. I don't necessarily like that description, so let's fix it. Cisco Expert, clear, accessible, companion for, well, hang on. We'll come back for a description in a second. I don't know if I like that description. Expert, clear, and accessible assistance for, how about that? All right. So now we can adjust these as well, and I am going to adjust these. But first, I want to highlight tying this back to RAG and retrieval augmented generation. We're going to upload files. So we can actually, I have some Crosswork documentation here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. I think we can only have 10 files. So let's grab 10. 1, 2, 3. Let me try this again. We're going to grab 10 of these Crosswork files. All right, that's enough. We're just going to upload those. So this could be all the documentation related to Crosswork install guides, troubleshooting guides, best practices, design guides. I've just picked a handful of getting started guides, all this stuff that the GPT now has direct access to. We're going to let it do web browsing. I can't see us needing image generation, so we're going to turn that one off, but we will leave the code interpreter on. So we're pretty close to having our GPT done. Now we're going to map in that OpenAPI YAML file. Create a new action. Import, add actions. Let your GPT retrieve information or take actions outside of ChatGPT. So you can see enter your OpenAPI schema here. We're going to import that schema from our OpenAPI YAML file, the same file that we used for our plugin. And I think I have to map the full path here. OpenAPI.yaml, import, and there we go. So now I've mapped this, and now you can see it's actually adding all of our actions. And I've mapped, let's try them so we can test playbooks. So this is going to call, right, here in our preview, I've just tried the test button, and it's saying call the crosswork automate your network API with the get crosswork playbooks operation. And here we go, we're going to always allow that. And it's going to make the test call just to make sure that it's working before we install this OpenAPI YAML file. So it talked to automateyournetwork.ca, it didn't send anything. And, that's funny. That's why we have a test. Oh, I see. That's funny. That one was working. Let's try the installed apps. Let's try that again. Let's try the installed apps. Playbooks, that's funny. I thought that one was working. But anyway, a little snag, a minor snag. Let's try the installed apps. And we're going to always allow. Oh, it disappeared. Let's try that again. Installed apps. Well, this is kind of buggy. Here we go. Here we go. It's coming back to us. So it talked to, and didn't send any info. And here we go. There's our applications. I'll have to troubleshoot that playbooks API. But here we go. So this is all working now. And we can try another one. Let's try our KPI interface packet counters. So then the only thing that we need to do is a privacy policy. Now that's only if you want to publish or share the GPT. And I have an example one that I could use, but we're going to ignore that. You could also turn authentication on here as an API key or OAuth. So we're going to always allow that. And let's just make sure one of our KPIs is working. And this one is the interface counters, I believe, or packet counters on interfaces. And we're just going to let this finish testing. And then we're going to adjust one more thing. So it did talk to it, and here we go. Here are the KPIs. Following details, and it gives us all the KPI data. Okay, wonderful. So now we're going to go back, and let's tailor our starter conversations. Let's tailor our starter conversations. So what specific details are needed? Because I want to, let's say, what applications do I have installed, right? We want these to be nice and easy. The other thing is describe the installed apps in simple terms. That's a good one. Can you explain my KPI for interface packet counters? All right, so now we're going to hit save, only for me, just for me. And then we're going to give it a go. And thank you again for sticking with me. I hope you find this pretty exciting. So now I have my crosswork companion here ready to go. And we can say, can you explain my KPIs for interface packet counters? And it's going to go ahead and grab those. If there was any questions related to the PDFs that it could answer, it will do retrieval augmented generation and pull the data from the PDFs. So we can have our knowledge base in PDFs or other file types. We can have live crosswork API activities, and drive our data center operations through ChatGPT GPTs. So it did talk to, but it didn't send any data. And here we go. Here are the key aspects of this KPI. The category, it falls under the layer 2 traffic category, functionality. It's going to explain these KPIs. So I want to wrap things up and thank you for joining me today. And I hope you found this futuristic and exciting and gives you some realm of the possible and some ideas